I think we can wrap up public comment for today. Anybody else have any comment? Okay. All right. For the record, we're going to close the public comment. Now, next is Councilman Matt Lloyd. You have a few statements.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to say I'm very thankful that everybody who showed up to speak, I counted, I think it was 37 in person and 3 on the phone, maybe it was 2. But first of all, there was some very helpful information shared here today. Thank you for spending the time to come over here and give us your perspective. My hope is that you all keep your promises and come back for future discussions that we so desperately need. I personally took a lot of notes that I will take back, digest, and work into my equation. My talking points will be brief in comparison to the public comment, but it definitely needs to be addressed again why I brought up this moratorium in the first place. Before that, I want to take a minute and reset expectations. What I mentioned last week was, like Judy, the caller, said, that what I mentioned was a moratorium on accepting applications on a specific type of development in AR1 lands, okay? 5 or more homes, major subdivisions for a period of 12 months. So that's to clarify number 1. Number 2, I want to dispel this notion really quick that somehow jobs would be lost or that this might kill the economy. That's simply not true. We currently have a backlog of applications that span between 14 to 22 months, okay, depending when they're first looked at versus the end of the approval process. That's important, so keeping that in mind, let's just assure our workforce now that they all keep their hammers and shovels ready because their livelihoods will continue. What I'm talking about is the administrative pause on processing new applications, so as not to ultimately wholesale deny them after 12 months, but rather to capture what changes the voters demanded this election. If we can admit today that our current growth practices into the farmland isn't working, then I do think it's appropriate to have this inflection point. And we need to start getting very serious about what changes are needed to be made. Not waiting years to make them, but to instill a sense of urgency and to meet this level of crisis with an equal level of effort. Not that we have all the answers here today, because quite frankly, there's a lot of people that came today. It's going to take a large effort on the parts of everybody that came today. But as we go down this road, it's evident to me we need a decisive point. The public has been screaming about this for the better part of 10 years. There are verifiable ways to show that what we're doing currently is not working, and I'm not comfortable just making a few design criteria changes in Chapter 99 or some buffer corrections, thinking it will solve the laundry list of problems I believe everybody here agrees with today. So again, what dominated the conversation for the last year was the issue of overdevelopment, specifically in the farmland. We talked about things like rapid loss of natural resources, predominantly because we're at 2 to the acre. We talked about the sprawl, the tentacle-like growth in the farmland, which is the cause of a lack of infrastructure and road improvements, and why the state can't begin to guess where we'll build next. We talked about the pressure on the ag industry and the effects of squeezing out all the little farms in between. We talked about a lack of inventory for workforce housing, specifically MR, GR, HR zoning. We talked about organic rezonings in levels 1, 2, and 3. We talked about fees for schools and firefighter funding, TIDs for road improvements, incentives, disincentives for driving growth into levels 1, 2, and 3 spending areas. So there's a litany of stuff we cannot afford to get wrong. I think we all agree that. And I, for one, am not interested, and I don't think anyone here is, quite frankly, in taking years to make minute changes that, quite frankly, just haven't been working. I actually believe, again, everybody up here agrees with that. So now how we get there, we may differ, but we, I believe, have a consensus. I hope everyone here can appreciate where I'm coming from. I know the thousands of voters in my district did, so I feel as if I'm walking on very thick ice. So in summary, we're not talking about the immediate adoption of a moratorium. I'm simply entertaining the points around the discussion. I'm, again, thankful everyone here got to voice their comments of opposition and support. I do hope you'll come back for the public hearings as we work through this process and get your points added to the record. I've asked legal counsel to go ahead and draft this targeted moratorium. Once it's of sufficient form and can withstand legal scrutiny, I would introduce it at that time. My understanding of the process is this. Upon introduction at the next meeting or the completion of the ordinance, it would get scheduled for a public hearing, advertised, then heard at P&Z, another hearing advertised, then ultimately voted on by the council for approval or denial. This would likely be at least 3 months away, but is dependent upon scheduling. So with that, I'll turn it back to the president or other members of the council for comments.
Okay, are there any members of the council that would like to comment?
Yeah, I've got some comments. I mean,
That's right.
First of all, the law says that any one of us can introduce, an ordinance or request that. But if there's no will on council to pursue and potentially adopt a moratorium, and I might be wrong, but by my head count, there at this point is only one person that's interested in that, then all we're doing is tying up the resources of our legal staff and our administrative staff on an exercise that's going to be bearing no fruit. And so I don't see the point of that. I mean, there are a number of issues that we need to address. We agree on that. I think everybody in this room probably agrees. One thing I really would like to encourage people, I mean, the speakers brought forth all the issues. We heard the problem. We know some of the problems, most of the problems, but we need concrete solutions. So if you have a suggestion or an idea of how a problem can be addressed, that can be valuable. I think we took one takeaway today is we probably need to have a working group. I think the 30-day timeline or 3-month timeline might be a little aggressive. I understand why you want to push us to be a little aggressive. I get that, because the time to work on it is now. I mean, the iron's hot. Let's move. I get that. But sometimes we work at the pace of government, and so hopefully everybody understands that reality as well. I personally would be in opposition to even asking our attorneys to spend their time to create an ordinance and have an introduction and public hearings and so forth, because it's basically a dead on arrival circumstance. So what are we doing? Let's focus our attention rather towards concrete action on specific. Let's be sharpshooters, not hand grenade lobbers, bomb throwers. Over the last couple of years, I mean, we've heard this message from the public, and we have taken action as a council. The previous council updated the drainage and buffer ordinance in 22. We updated and rewrote the Sussex County rental program in 22. Probably need to revisit that and do some more work there, as well as pursue the concept of a workforce ownership program. There's an interesting project, Dutchman's Harbor down in Lewis, that could potentially be an example that we could follow, but that's a discussion we really need to have. We updated the requirements for solar farms. We updated requirements for when amenities must be constructed in subdivisions. We updated the definition of through lots. Updated the accessory dwelling unit ordinance that permits this type of housing by right to help mitigate the affordable housing issue. We rewrote the definition of perimeter buffers. We updated the definition of open space. And just last month, it's only been a month, we updated 99C with a list of 17 items of criteria for every subdivision. And I get it that many people think we didn't go far enough on that. I probably am in the camp that thinks we didn't go far enough on that. But it's only been a month. I mean, the pace of government, again, development is, a month is nothing. 3 months is really nothing in the development world. I mean, in DelDOT world, they work in 7-year blocks, unfortunately. So, yes, we need to have a sense of urgency. I believe this new council comes in with a lot of energy and ideas. I don't think moratorium is something we need to spend a lot of time entertaining. I don't want to tie up our legal staff and our administrative staff in something that, it's probably a foregone conclusion that we're not going to support at the end of the day. Very thankful for the turnout here. I believe this has got to be a record. 2 hours of public hearing on the 3-minute clock is really exceptional, and I know you all took time out of your schedules and away from your jobs, and it's important. And thank you for coming. And lots of good ideas. You know, we need to probably go back and listen to the tape a couple times and write down many of the things that were said today. But I think your message is loud and clear. My mail, as I reviewed it throughout the course of the week, and I've had more mail on this than I've had on any topic probably in a while, 4-1 against. 4-1 against. So there's a very, committed and vocal minority that thinks it's the right thing to do. I think those emotions are born out of frustration more than anything else. Yes, we need to get to work. We need to roll up our sleeves and get moving, and I look forward to that.
Where to start? Let me first of all start by echoing my colleagues' appreciation of everybody who came and spoke and raised many, many important issues. I really am appreciative of that. And appreciative of the many offers to continue to help us as we work these concerns through. We're going to call on you for that because we're going to need that help. It's going to be important. I'm not quite as sure as John is that we don't have support for a moratorium down the road. What I do think is that when some of the speakers mentioned, let's put some timelines on the work that we're going to do, and if we don't get it done by those timelines, then we have to look at perhaps a stronger motion to get us moving along that pathway. The call that virtually everybody made, I think in one way or another, for doing something about affordable housing is clear and urgent. One of the things I want to thank my colleague for bringing this forward at this point is he highlighted the urgency of the work we have to do. And that means we can't just do it the way we've done it in the past. We can't just fall back on government is slow, this takes time. There has to be due process, I understand that. There has to be time for consideration, I believe in that. There has to be time to do appropriate research, I'm in favor of that, so that we don't impose something in any fashion that has unintended consequences that does serious harm to any portion of our population. Having said that, though, this is an urgent situation. For too long, for years, I've heard the problem raised, we don't have affordable housing. We don't have housing for our workforce. And I'm still waiting to see a really aggressive effort to solve that problem, which, based on what I've heard here today, it is a problem, and it's a problem for everybody, no matter where you sit in the county, no matter what your task or work is, it is a problem. We have to address it, and not 6 months from now, or 10 months from now, or a year and a half from now, but now. So I do applaud the suggestions from some of the speakers for putting some timelines in place that say really clearly that if we don't make serious progress, I don't know quite the proper wording for this, we'll work this out, on some of these key issues, then we have to look at something much more forceful, and that may be a moratorium. I also want to say that I heard a lot about demand. I'm not one who thinks that county council's job is to meet the demand of those who want to move here. I think county council's job is to secure and provide for the health, safety, and well-being of the citizens who live here. It's not that I don't want people to come. I came, a lot of people in this room came. I'm not native Delawarean. And it's not that I want to stop the flow of people who want to come here. But my job, I believe, is to ensure the best possible process for development that ensures that we take care of our environment. We don't have to talk about this right now, but we all as a nation are facing devastating effects from having ignored the well-being of our environment. And we cannot afford to do that, particularly in this area. So we do have to look at what we can do to redress the lack of attention to sustainable building. We have to work together to address the issues of affordable housing. We have to work together to ensure that we don't continue to just add more problems to our roads before we can address the ones we already have. There's a lot of work to do. I am heartened and gratified from virtually everybody who offered to be part of helping us find the solutions. It's hard work ahead, and it's not quick work ahead. But I want to be clear that this work is urgent. This work should have been done a long time ago, right? We're behind the 8 ball. I don't know what image you want to use here, but this is an urgent situation, and it calls upon all of us to get down to work now and to do it in a manner that brings real solutions to the table very, very soon.
Thank you.
I had a couple thoughts.
Let me go to Mr. McCarron first,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
see if he has a comment. We'll come
Thank you,
back.
Mr. President. I was going to ask, I'm glad it was confirmed, yes, there's certainly a physical note or financial impact, and even, holding this meeting today, but then moving forward and, asking to have an ordinance developed. That's certainly any one of ours rights, but that comes with responsibility in my mind of spending tax dollars wisely. And on the ride home, I think each and one of us, we can, take probably a rough estimate of what that costs. And how many houses do we have to drive by to, that's going to finance this exercise? And I think that's important. Remember, there is a financial impact of this exercise. There's been many references to a working group. I believe that in 2018, Planning and Zoning asked for a working group at the end of the comprehensive plan. We heard from many, many people today that that's something that it should happen, and I think the time is now to develop a vision for Sussex County. And at the same time, it's something we could do in the near future, or very near future, is identify and exclude areas from development that we identify don't have the infrastructure in place and are not suitable for development in this county. I really appreciate everybody that came out and made comments today. It's a sobering conversation, and I appreciate Ms. Hicks and the organization you represent showing some restraint and saying, look, there's 3 new people on here, and there's a group of 5. Let's give them some time to figure this out, and everybody from the construction industry and a lot of different trades and other industries coming out and supporting this. But for last year, I campaigned on a platform of responsible growth and ensuring infrastructure was in place before development. And that appears to be in line with my colleagues who are successful in their campaigns and sit with me today. And at no point moratorium was mentioned by me or even alluded to. And I was elected to do a job, identify the problems, gather information, and gather a consensus of informed council members for a solution. I'd appreciate more than the second meeting to do that job, for all of us to do the job that we were elected to do. We have roughly 4 hours of meeting under our belts, and we are discussing a disturbingly vague measure with unknown effects that is a last resort attempt or is used as a tool to control a new unknown, such as when casinos were legalized and there was a temporary moratorium on them. It's obvious Sussex County has faced significant growth. Much of the growth may be in areas that we deem inappropriate without significant private or state investment. It is our job to tailor growth in a way that represents the views of our residents and benefits the county moving forward, without damaging the public's investments in roadways, schools, emergency services, etc. I'm not naive enough to think I understand the full impact of presenting, much less enacting, a moratorium without first exhausting my options as a council member. What is needed is a heavy dose of common sense. Our efforts must align with the state, and the state is currently reorganizing its leadership. These meetings will happen soon, and I'm here to do a job. And if we need to set a timer before revisiting the launch button, let's shoot for considerable measurable differences in, let's say, 18 months. But we need to avoid distracting measures at the start of this race for a fix. While intriguing, this exercise distracts us from the job we were elected to do, especially given its immediate introduction. I'm here for lasting results, not headlines. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Riley, you had an additional
Well, I just want to add the thought that anything we do here, if the towns would not concurrently enact moratoriums, it would be completely ineffective. The largest developments we've seen are in Milton, Millsboro, Georgetown, Selbyville, Frankfurt, Bridgeville, Joe. So we could have no development within the county, and the pace of development would continue unabated. So that's number one. We have to be mindful of that. But the overriding thing that concerns me is government needs to be, we need to be predictable and intentional. And if government is capricious and unpredictable, it puts a burden on anybody that is putting their own capital at risk, to venture into a business developing homes or building. And that can't be. We have to be predictable and intentional in everything we do so that we provide, a level playing field and people are not taken off guard or by surprise. So,
Okay.
that's enough.
Mr. Lloyd, last up.
Yeah, just one last comment. I'm going to stick with, if we all can collectively agree here that what we're currently doing isn't working, why would we knowingly go march forward and accepting applications that have consequences we've been watching for so long and what the voters demanded we start to take more or less immediate action on? I'm not suggesting any of this stuff happens fast. I know that. I just prefer the sense of urgency and some kind of timeline with deliverables, notable check marks where there are things happening, and I just, that is the way that I have a bent in that direction. So that is the last thing I want to say on this.
Okay, I think that clears that up, and I would entertain a motion to recess